It was a documentation of an event, of which is what I love to do as a filmmaker.
Yeah, so it was, I guess, a natural thing to show up and something you believed in, started documenting what was going on, and then later on there was this idea that there was, I guess, a storyline and content to tell a story. And so what was the story, just for the listeners listening, what was the story that you wanted to convey through your film River of Freedom that was out in 2023?
Do you want to take that one, Jared?
No, you carry on, Gaylene. Yeah.
You guys are being way too nice.
Yeah.
Let's tackle this like tackling a bull in Spanish.
So the focus was absolutely the convoy and the Parliament protest. And who were the people there? Why were they there? And what did they want? And did they achieve that? And then what happened? So it's a pretty straightforward story.
Yeah.
And we also followed, different communities in Picton. I did some protests in Christchurch, but the focus was absolutely the Wellington protest. The main reason people were there was to end the mandates. It was all the people who came to support, including tangata whenua and all sorts of people all across New Zealand, very provincial New Zealand as well. So I have to say I had a moment when on the 1st of March where I was wondering how we're going to end this film.
Yeah. There's always that moment. It's like, how do I finish this? I don't know where
I had to leave.
Going, but we're making a movie. Don't know where this is going.
I know. And then the 2nd of March happened, and I was like, yeah, got an end to the film. I mean, I'm sorry, but yeah, like it. It was a climax. It was unexpected and brutal and terrible. But at least there was an end, from my point of view as a filmmaker, because there had to be an end. And I was very grateful that I was there on that day, on the 2nd of March, when the police came through, and I was able to film all day and get probably some of the really great content that we used throughout the whole film.
Yeah. And so what did you learn about why people were there? Why did they want to end the mandate? Why did they want to do that? What did you learn from observing them or talking to them?
I have to say probably every second person, it was a spiritual reason.
Okay.
They had a deeply held spiritual or ethical reason to not take the vaccine, and they felt ostracized and excluded from society because of their beliefs. Some people were there for medical reasons. They just had seen injuries or family were hurt. They were over the division in society that had happened through the vaccine mandates. People had lost family, friends. They were sick of the lockdowns. That was a big one.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to mention as well as it was also the mandate by stealth action that the government was taking. That there was a lot of people there who also were opposed to the mandates because of their spiritual or personal reasons for not wanting to take a medical intervention into their bodies, but there was also a resistance to the way the government was handling the situation. It was political as well. There was very much people who were there who were vaccinated, who just weren't interested at all in the government coming down and pretending that it was all okay and just take this this intervention into your body when there was no room for your own choice and just carrying on in society.
Yeah, I think that sort of kind of leads to the question that I was going to ask Gaylene, was around why become a filmmaker filming protests, right? And why do people protest? And what Jared is saying is, to my perspective, to my view of the world, is people do this stuff, people protest or people stand up against something that's not right is because the primary functions of society aren't functioning. Government's not really doing, in this case, the job that many people protesting think that they should be doing. And the media is not telling the real story, which is where you come in and you have a film that actually balances the story. You want to make sure that there is a story for vaccines and against vaccines, and both have a place in society, and that's what people want to listen to, and that drives everybody's concerns and incentives and things that they want to push for.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get into making films for protest? What's the idea behind, oh, I'm going to go film protests? What is the essence, I guess, that you want to capture from protests?
Yeah, it is. It's about capturing the voice of the people. And in our instance, as Jared pointed out, it wasn't being heard. That these people were absolutely being censored, silenced. There was very little coverage of their hurt, their pain, what they were experiencing, their lived experience. So we go out and, we're both in the story and in the book that's to come.
Yeah.
We're very much focused on the genuine lived experience. And you can't, there's no judgment on that. It's just how people felt, and it's what they experienced. And the government in New Zealand at that time were extremely domineering and authoritarian. I mean, they were not behaving democratically. And so there was a legitimate reason to protest against the government at that point. I mean, even the that bill that came in, the vaccinations legislation bill, that one, the traffic light one, that they introduced in late November, and that hit the streets on the 3rd of December, where everyone wasn't allowed to go and get a haircut and go to the cafe. That was a clincher, that really drove, I think, a lot of people just out of their minds with how dare they do this. They never did proper Bill of Rights analysis on that. They didn't do any of the normal parliamentary processes that they're supposed to sort of make sure that democracy is heard. Because unfortunately the particular government at that time, it was Labour, but it could have been National, it doesn't actually matter. They had a majority. So and then they had a whole year to sort of get that legislation organised and present it to the people and let them be committees and do the democratic process, and they didn't. And the interesting thing is, even Trevor Mallard, he was the Speaker of the House at the time, criticised the government, the executive, for the way they introduced that bill. Any other bill, any boring old bill, if you look around it at that time, had enormous amounts of regulatory information. It had the good analysis, it had committees, it had months of consultation. There was just so little, and it had such a huge effect, and it was pretty much the primary. And in fact, I think there's actually, if any lawyers are around, you could really toast the government on that particular legislation because of the way they didn't follow democratic process. And as you're right, we have to have both sides. We have to hear all people, right, and acknowledge that we're in a diverse community where people have different views. So it's not cool to cancel.
Yeah. I think we have a real problem when you have a government that's breaking its own laws. I think that has to be a measure. And the sad day for me was when I think it was the Supreme Court or one of the high courts that said, the New Zealand government was not in breach of the Bill of Rights. And that's where I think there's a problem when you look at America and the Constitution you have, and how the people can use the Constitution to protect itself from the Constitution. The Second Amendment I'm talking about. And I think in New Zealand somehow the government felt that they could capitalize on the New Zealand culture, which I find very compliant, similar to the Japanese culture. It's not actually very Western in terms of how Americans see freedom, and they just went for it and just grabbed as much as they could, and the resistance was very minimal in many ways, that's even. I don't see much coming out of this whole COVID inquiry that's happening right now. It's very soft, compared to putting people in prison. And really putting the marker down on how we want to make sure that we want to protect the people from the government, right? And the whole COVID-19 inquiry that we're seeing now is like the government is just trying to work its way through to make sure they protect themselves first, the trust in government first, not so much the people. Sorry,
Jared?
go ahead. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I haven't looked into the inquiry for a while. I had high hopes when it was first. No, I lie. When it was first announced, it looked like a whitewash. Labor was still in power, and some of the hard questions weren't being asked. But then, gained sort of a bit of hope when the government changed, and Winston was definitely out there campaigning on the back of trying to make a difference for all those people whose voices weren't heard, which led into the COVID inquiry. I haven't really dived back in there for a while, to be honest, since it was all there were changes were being announced. But every time I sort of would catch wind of something, it felt like it was being softened or being the edges were being dulled a little bit, just to sort of force it home and just try and say they were doing the right thing, but probably still just doing the same old thing and brushing it under the carpet a little bit so they could move on. But I think you're right. I think the system is designed for self-perpetuation, so they're not going to challenge themselves too harshly to a degree, because they want to come out of it shiny as well. They'll take some wins, they'll take some swings, and at the Labor government and what was happening back then. But at the same time, they still want to be able to rule the way that they rule, and maintain the authority that they have. So they don't want to sort of jeopardise too much of their own system. I think,
and the problem with that is that you're gonna have more and more people go watch your film, River of Freedom, and more people start not believing in the primary functions of governments and the justice system, and more people are going to go buy your book, because it's one thing is, yes, about the protest and the story that people want to learn and understand and enjoy and entertain themselves with, but it's also the underlying issues that we have in society is what your film is talking about mainly. Is why are the people there? Well, they're there because their functions of government's not working. Why are they not working? How do I want to get involved? So, I think there was recently a survey done by NZ Stats that talked about how trust in institutions has further dropped from 86% to 82%. So the issue we're going to have, and if we're not going to address this through whatever means, whether it's a COVID inquiry or, doing it right with the people who've suffered, or punishing the people who've, broken the rights of people that they're meant to serve, you're going to lose more and more trust. And there's going to be more and more people that are going to stand up, speak up, start podcasts, do more films, write more books. Mm-hmm. And I think that trend is just going to grow and grow and grow. And I see that happening with this government is they came in and won on the back of all the stuff that they could find to attack the Labour government. And that was successful, but the reality is starting to settle in after 1 year of being in government. And I don't think it's as shiny as people see it.
Well, one of the things that I really respected about the people who went to the protest is they understood how government works. They had really, most of them had a very clear understanding of democracy and what governments are supposed to do and how they failed. And that was a learning for me. I didn't even have a very great understanding of that because, we live in a bit of just trust the government, they just do their thing over there,
Yeah.
But then since learning, in New Zealand, the way the parliament works is it's sovereign, it's parliamentary sovereignty and legislative supremacy. So they make a law, that's it. So when these lawmakers are making laws, that's why it's so important that we do have this consultation. We do talk to people. We do make sure it's justified limitations on rights. And the other thing I've discovered is that the Bill of Rights was actually going to become supreme. They did actually try to put the Bill of Rights over top of that legislative supremacy in 1985, but it got sort of voted down. So that would have enabled, if that had been in place, like it would have been effectively a bit of a constitution. So, but at the moment what happens is the lawmakers get to decide if it meets the Bill of Rights or not. And if you read Attorney General Andrew Little's statement on the vaccination bill and also the original COVID one, there's lies in there.
Yeah.
Like they're literally saying, I've got it right here about it's going to prevent transmission. The vaccine will prevent transmission, so that's why it's great that we've got it, and that justifies the limitation on our rights to not take a medical treatment and to practice our religion, which was one of the main two key rights that
I always
they
have a problem with a politician being an attorney general. So how does that work?
Exactly. That is I reckon that's the key problem, because they're in the same party that as has writing the bill. In fact, it's not Andrew Little, it was David Parker, I think, who probably wrote the bill and then decided and then took it to the Bill of Rights world and then analysed it to see if it was compliant or not. And of course he's not going to, you made a little issue here.
If you believe that politicians don't lie, good luck. You have the same thing with how parliament is structured. It's like, there's the party that is in power. They choose who's the Speaker of the House, and he dictates, who can go hard at a problem, who needs to be shut down, who needs to be kicked out. There is just so many different layers that are involved in, again, coming to the point of, not trusting the government in doing the things that they should be doing. And, there was, they had this new minister for media and communications, which was Melissa Lee, and she was doing a really good job of, speaking the truth, saying what we should know about the media, but the government just could not take the heat. And so they removed him. They brought this other guy who is the Minister of Justice to be the Minister of Media, which is, to me, is like a no, you don't do that. And he's got a hard-on about giving every police officer the right to go arrest Kim.com if he see him around wandering on the streets. And it's just behavior of, someone that is just a puppet of the American regime. There's a lot of issues, and I can talk about it for hours. But it's a good thing to, for people listening and watching this podcast, is watch River of Freedom. Can't stress that enough. And have a diversified view of where you get your information from and how much you trust every single source. And you have to diversify the sources that you trust and the information that you consume. Yeah.
I'll just say one more on that note. Because we have such a supremacy in our parliament, it is so important that we have a very active media estate. What is it called? The fourth estate or something?
Yeah, the fourth estate,
that holds them accountable at every step for every decision they made. And the media failed big time. So that's where, we stepped in with the film.
Yeah. Jared, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about watching the film and, just a little story I came across in the last couple of weeks. The film's been out online for a while now, and so people can see it either through our distributor or through our website. All the links are there for the various platforms, etc. One thing we've been trying to do for a while now is see if we could find a broadcaster to play the documentary, TV in New Zealand. Really, we wanted to be able to get the film out so that everybody in New Zealand had an opportunity, because our audience is within our bubble, within our echo chamber ourselves. We try and break out of that as much as we can to reach other people. And we had a great run in the cinemas, which I think was, did a great job of, being able to be there for anybody to come and see the film at their own, at their leisure, or be invited. But anyway, we had our distributor try to reach TVNZ. We've tried a couple of times ourselves as well, but to no avail. They're not interested in playing it, and it's just been falling on deaf ears. But I was looking through the entertainment trades. I do it regularly, just film work. You're just trying to see what's going on out there in the world, and I saw a Donald Trump documentary that people were lauding at the latest Toronto International Film Festival. They were pre-selling it, so the documentary hadn't been made, but the filmmakers were attached, and so they had this idea, and they were out there pre-selling the film. And the film was all about the January 6th insurrection again. They're making another documentary about it, and I'm pretty sure the idea was that it was very close to being finished, and they were going to release it before the US election. And it was from the insiders of Trump's team, the people on the inside who really saw what happened and how Trump set the whole thing up, and how it was all just, he was refusing to accept the election results, and he was going to take down the government, and et cetera, the usual sort of lefty story. And I was sort of paid a little bit of attention, and they went on to talk about how amazing the sales were that they were doing around the world, and who was playing this, and they started rattling off various studios and various distributors and various platforms around the world. And there was TVNZ New Zealand had brought rights to play this film.
Not even made yet. Are you kidding me?
Not even made.
Ah!
Yeah.
And I was
my God!
I was at
You're
that
making
point
me
just
mad.
going, wow.
Yeah.
Like TVNZ have gone out and pre-bought this documentary, which is obvious propaganda.
Yeah, just
pre-election, and they're going to show it on New Zealand television about an event that happened X number of years ago in a different country.
I know.
Yet they won't have a bar of our domestic film about our own domestic politics.
Not even a conversation, Jared. I got zero silence, from the commissioners.
I know. And you're just going,
this
is the situation, this is the climate, this is the, TVNZ are allowed to have their own, business affairs and do what they want, but they're still meant to be our national broadcaster.
Balanced.
Yeah.
That's just not balanced. And that's the problem when we've got this parliament. Like, this is where you lose trust, because you see that they're not balanced. And it's so obvious now.
Yeah, the reality is that's why the fourth estate is breaking down. That's why you have new media platforms that are coming up. Before the podcast, Gaylene and I talked about, thank God for X. And podcasts. That's why I got into doing media. That's why I have my own audience. That's why I launched Gospel Trope, which is an alternative satire fake news media organization. If everybody's in the business of publishing fake news, I want to get into the business of publishing fake news, but I at least say that it's fake news, and I try to say truthful things using fake news, not lies, right? So that's the whole thing, is the fourth estate has to be held accountable and criticized, because they should be showing River of Freedom, not a drum derangement syndrome documentary about the resurrections and the January 6th. But you look at what's happening with the coverage of American politics. 89% of stories about Trump is negative, and 91% of stories about Kamala is positive, right? All of a sudden she's this like messiah, and she is better than Obama, and she's the best president in the history of the United States. You just think, oh my God, what's going on over here? It's all programming, right? So I'd love to see River of Freedom on TVNZ, on all these platforms, and I think push that and criticize them for not doing that, because it's obvious that there is bias here, right?
And they're showing the other films like The Web of Lies and Fire and Fury, whatever it was. That they've played them repeatedly.
They got in trouble for that, Fire and Fury. I think it was.
Did they?
It's So there's a story that's come out from Chantel Baker. I don't know if you know her.
She's suing them at the moment.
Yeah, about
Fire
so
she
Fury
got a good
Hannah.
That was from New Zealand Herald. when they
Yes.
publish something.
Yeah.
And now she's putting her attention towards Paula Penfold, Louisa Grieve, who's the producer of that, and Fire and Fury and the Stuff team. I actually put in a complaint on that one to the Broadcasting Standards Authority on Fire and Fury.
Yeah, and that's great stuff because, there's a lot of it is propaganda, and the disinformation project is there to discredit other people than actually find real disinformation. Because if you really want disinformation, you should go look at what Jacinda did, that's all disinformation. And if you come out and say that you're the single source of truth, I mean, okay, all right, you're in trouble already,
Or you could just go to the awards ceremony and see which documentaries have won awards, and then they're all they're all in bed together. It'd be great if Chantal wins that case, because just to expose it for what it is.
Yeah, it's great because those stories do add up, and people do wake up and ask the question and say, "What's going on over here?" But what I did love is I watched a video of how you guys got the cinemas on board. And how some were hesitant to begin with, and how some really went after it, and how it was really game changing for many cinemas who were having a tough time. And it goes to tell how important and a fresh story it was when it got out to the cinemas, and how it was number one for a lot of them. And you guys smashed some big movies as well, like Oppenheimer. And I thought that was really incredible. That really was awesome to see that people got behind it, and they wanted to watch the story and hear the story. And if it ends up on these platforms like TVNZ or Neon, or lots of different platforms in New Zealand, I think that would be incredible for more and more people to watch it, because the durability of that story, it's going to be for the next 10-15 years, because it just stretches to all these different stories and realities. There was a story last week which I made fun of on my satire platform about a COVID vaccine manufacturer stopping COVID vaccines because it causes blood clots and it causes death. They're basically now admitting it themselves that their vaccines cause injury. But nobody is covering that. Nobody's telling that story. That's all of a sudden now a normal thing, that vaccines do cause injury. Right? So there's a lot to it, and I'd love to see that. But I also think it's good for you guys to pursue alternative media platforms and push your own channels. And the book, you're doing a book about River of Freedom. That's a great way to kind of, I guess, branch out and do new things and build on that. So pursue all pathways is what I would say.
Well, it was pretty exciting when it was a lot of hard work getting that film distributed. We didn't even try to get an independent distributor to do it for us, because we just knew it would get the same sort of cancelling. So it was always, and I've done it before with my other film, and independently distributed. It's not actually that hard. There's only about 50 cinemas in New Zealand, and you just talk to them and then ask if they want it. It's just what every distributor does. And then it's really easy. There's a wee clearinghouse in Auckland that just sends the film out to all these people. So you can use all these services. So it's very simple. Well, it's a lot of hard work, but it's not impossible to do. So we had a great team who were able to get on the phone, talk to cinema owners. A lot of them were just telling us to bugger off. One of the in Christchurch could not get a cinema in Christchurch for 3 weeks to play the film after release. I even got one cinema said, "Oh, we don't want to pollute our beautiful theatre with that film."
Oh, that's great.
I can tell you who it was too. It was in Wigram, Silky Otter. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Call them out. Call them out. You should have all these framed, like all these rejections, and send it to them after 10 years when they themselves have been converted. That's funny. Have you tried? Is the film gone into any cinema overseas?
No.
Is that something you guys would try and, I guess, do to get into cinemas like maybe Canada or the US, Australia?
I think it would be, the way that cinemas work and distribution and stuff. It's really challenging. Documentaries particularly don't play well in cinemas. So somebody can book it for a one-off screening. If they had a community event or something along those lines, but the box office around the world is pretty tight as to what films get played. So you could do a sort of a little independent run, which is similar to what we did here in New Zealand. Like we struggled to break into the big cinemas like Event and Hoyts, things like that. Like they would take it in certain areas, but they were really just interested in pumping out the numbers. We had inquiries, but I don't think it's actually played in a cinema overseas. It is a very local film as well. While there's a lot of universal themes, it's a lot of people do see it more as an insight into New Zealand culture as well. There's a very much a big portion of who we are as Kiwis there, and the independent spirit of the classic Kiwi citizen. Whereas international audiences are sort of looking for probably a little easier access, to what it is. And Gaylene has talked about possibly doing another cut of the film for international audiences, so it's a bit more of a easily digestible. At the moment the film's 2.5 hours, so getting it to 90 minutes is a challenge, but not impossible.
I think there is a huge opportunity for an international cut, and I say that because New Zealand has cemented itself in history for being a global leader in really normalizing the whole pandemic. I mean, it was all Jacinda's work. So how was she able to do it in New Zealand and then, galvanize the world to fall in line with is a narrative that the film may explore to understand, well, what is New Zealand culture? How did she do it? How did people feel about it? How did it, this whole be kind and blah, 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 but she's the one who was not being kind, calling out people for going out for walks because they somehow forgot to follow the rules. So I think there is a great opportunity for an international cut. But hey, you're the filmmaker, not me.
Well,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So obviously there's films that have been funded that are going to talk about Jacinda Ardern and her kindness during COVID,
There's
and
a
how
documentary
misogyny
about
drove
it.
her out.
I'm sure
And
Jared would love this. There's a documentary that's about $800,000 of tax.
that's right.
Into Jacinda. Maybe you can launch it at the same week.
Well, exactly. I was just going to say, well, because this helped us even with Fire and Fury. We sort of rode on the back of the outrage about that. So I think we could totally look at that, Jared. Making sure our international cut is ready to go in exactly the same week as that documentary, and that's directed actually by Justin Pemberton, who also made the Web of Chaos television NZ propaganda film.
Right.
So because of that, we sort of, you want to be fair and think, well, lovely a Jacinda Ardern documentary, but you've got a sense
I
already.
emailed the producers. This is for the whoever the international producers were. I emailed them and I said, "Oh, just congratulations, and I hope it goes well. But if you want to take a look at our film for an alternative perspective on the way that the leader of the country was viewed at the time by the people in the country." Here's a good opportunity, because you're only absolutely. I know what you're being told. You've got this vision of what it is, this highly curated media package. But if you look at our film, you'll see what was actually going on the ground. Very different. So I did notice, and I thought here's a funny one for us as well to help our marketing campaign, Gaylene, is we could see if we could get River of Freedom listed on Jacinda Ardern's Wikipedia page, because it's just it was of the time. But I did, for some reason, I ended up on her Wikipedia page, and I was just laughing, going, "How did I end up here?" But it had on there how she, on her Wikipedia page, how she had saved 80,000 lives in New Zealand from her COVID policies.
Wow.
And this is like in the first couple of paragraphs about who she is. And I was like, and it's got a citation on it. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll click on that
be Michael
citation.
Planck or Michael Baker. No?
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, okay, so 80,000 lives saved, click, click, click. Went to a story. And it was Michael Planck speculating in 2020 how many lives might be saved by the policies of closing our borders. Mm-hmm. And that's how she saved 80,000 lives. Just from, and it was a speculation.
And that's history now. That's history.
That's
because
exactly
it's on Wikipedia.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's right. And
it's a rat.
Yeah.
He should be in prison.
Yeah. Well, Michael Planck is the other guy. He's a Christchurch mathematician. I mean, these are epidemiologists and mathematicians. They're not doctors. Okay, number one. Yeah. Let's just leave it at that.
Throw him in the same cell with P. Diddy.
Yeah. I was thinking, maybe we should get River of Freedom listed on her page as a citation, this sort of thing, and sort of see how long we can ride that for.
Do you know who controls her Wikipedia page? There's surely someone that would have control to it or access to it. And if some pages are I guess accessible, like any contributor can go and edit a page. Yeah. But then you have all these like underground networks that will see that you're adding something critical in there. They will go and delete it immediately.
Yeah.
I know. I actually researched that for the Parliament protest page because I tried to get in and edit some basic mistruths, but for some reason I'm like blocked forever.
Oh yes, yeah, people do that.
I've hardly touched Wikipedia, and I'm like, I can't be bothered. I'm trying fighting it, but I might. But if anyone is out there and can actually put even our film on the Parliament protest page properly, would be fantastic. But it's actually run by this guy in Dunedin. I don't know,
Wikipedia is losing its trust because there are these people with their own agenda control and block people's pages. You know, Graham Hancock is another one. I don't know if you've heard of him, and he's got a new documentary coming out on Netflix about archaeology and ancient history. His Wikipedia page is blocked and controlled by mainstream historians, and they constantly publish lie on his Wikipedia page, and Wikipedia doesn't do anything about it.
It's like, it's just
what the fuck is
propaganda.
going on over here?
The thing to understand about Wikipedia is they just use news. Yeah. You know, like it's not original sources, the news ever. Even some of the books, you know, like Byron Clark's Fear, all of his most of his references were from the news. You know, News Hub and stuff, and that's how we're now building history for the future. Because you know, you could say Wikipedia is a repository of, you know, what happened for real, but when all of their references are actually just news items with their very limited and very biased view, that's when we're starting to head into some. I do think it's quite concerning.
I think the whole Jacinda, countering the Jacinda narrative, is a smart way of doing engagement farming. If you've ever heard of that, engagement farming is essentially social media algorithms. There is a story that comes out. There's a lot of, I guess, pull to that story in terms of reach, and if you can tag yourself to that story and drag yourself to that reach, you're getting a lot of reach. Jacinda, last week somebody told me, I have to check this the source or whatever, that she's charging $200,000 for a talk. She's right now heading the circuits around. She was in Canada, she was at the DNC with Kamala. She's charging $200,000 to talk about how she helped New Zealand.
How she ran a country with empathy.
Exactly. That she's charging $200,000 for just that, for a talk, for a 1 hour talk or whatever it is. So there is a lot of durability of storytelling for an international cut for River of Freedom. In countering that exactly same narrative.
We should get in there. I have tried to get in there and bust in on some of those threads with a little link to our film, doing our own little engagement farming. It has worked a couple of times, but
it's super interesting. What do you think was the aftermath of River of Freedom in New Zealand as a society, as a culture, from the conversations you've had with people who've watched it, and then the word spread, and the conversations you've had with how people are, I guess, awakened from watching your film?
Well, the big thing that I got from the film coming out and speaking to people and just feeling, where they had landed after watching it was the validation, that society, that these people in our communities and our societies were able to be heard, and it wasn't about validating the fact that they were right or they were wrong or challenging it, but it wasn't a fact-checking situation. It was just going, no, this is just what I wanted to say, and you captured it really well, and you told that story really well of everything that I was experiencing and that I could see and I could touch at the time. And so a lot of people came away feeling or sharing that they were just really excited to be able to know that their story was out there now and that people could access it. Whereas before it was, you were literally, you were just yelled and screamed at for being an anti-vaxxer or anti-government or a right-wing extremist by having any association with not wanting to, follow, the government's, mandates. So I think a lot of people got a lot of strength out of the film as well, and it just helped, connect people, continue to build their communities. We had all had our own experiences from across the country. We come together at the protest. We left, but that film now is built into history, and it's an experience that people can dip back into and watch again. I watched it again recently, and was still as moved as ever, and was watching it with people who hadn't seen it, and it was probably almost 6 months after it had been released. So there's still an audience that haven't seen it, and would love to be able to reach them, just to again share the story.
That's
not so much because we've got.
Before asking Gaylene the same question, it's such a really good important point that River of Freedom is about the real stories of people. It's not a narrative. It's not about anti-vaccines. It's about the people that had an experience at a time that was an overreach of pushing and taking people's freedoms away. And when you watch it, you're not really being shoved down a narrative. It's the people's stories, and it's how people are really feeling in these communities. And it's such a really good point. I just want to mention that. Gaylene, what was your experience of the aftermath of the film coming out?
Well, I was really nervous, going into that Auckland premiere. It's just terrifying. It's wandering around the back. But what I saw happen at the end, so we got the standing ovation, which was amazing, and then it was just peace. Okay, and that happened in every sort of screening I went to. There wasn't this, let's get out there and get back on the streets, revolution, because that's not what people wanted. People wanted to be heard.
Yeah. And
we listened, and we tried to tell their story as authentically and as genuinely as possible. And there was, I didn't expect that actually. I did expect there would be a bit of anger and about the way they were treated, particularly on the 2nd of March.
Yeah.
And of course there is, but in general it was a peace, and it made me realise it's so simple to govern a country if you just listen to the people. And the shame of the government, they're out there for 23 days and nobody came out to listen to them. I mean, that is unheard of, and that fact alone should have it in the history books forever.
Yeah.
So that's why we made the film, was to make sure it is encapsulated that story in the history books forever. We've made it for the future. Even now, maybe people aren't ready for it, but maybe in 2 to 3 years they might be. I know that it's been shown in universities at the moment.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm sending them copyright notices.
Are they not paying you for it?
No!
Are they just like ripping it off from
Some of them
Pirate
are.
Bay or something?
Some of them have asked, because I've made a DVD
Oh, yeah.
and a Blu-ray.
Oh, my God.
So they've bought that and they can play it in the library. They can put it in the library. But no, there's definitely universities that have been shown it in their class, and they need to buy an educational license.
Well, the government busy going after Kim.com for the mega uploads copyright breaches.
I know, right?
They should
Yeah.
be chasing all these universities. Going,
Yeah.
hey, you can't watch that film. Brilliant. Yeah, I think you're right. There is, yeah, like I said, there, you know, the awakening is a journey for a lot of people, and you know, people may not be ready for it now, but maybe in 2-3 years' time they'll be ready for it. And it's, yeah, I think it's such an important film to watch to really understand the different perspectives. And for me, the big thing was just the lies and the disinformation and the misinformation that was coming from the government itself. The censorship one was really, really fucked with me. It's like this ability to shut someone down because you want to push your narrative. That was super wrong. And Jacinda was right in the deep of it. It's this idea of taking Christchurch Call, an incident that's happened, and turn this into a global movement called the Christchurch Call. And the number one primary threat to democracy is misinformation. No, actually, that's not true. The number one threat to democracy is the ability to function through democracy. And you're failing to do that because you're failing to listen to your people, and you're forcing rules on them because you think that's the right thing to do, or you know, you believe that's, you know, everybody should be vaccinated. Yeah, now she's more hated than Hitler. Welcome to the real world. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
So what's
I always
next?
felt that New Zealand was very much being used as a test case for many of the sort of the ideas that were being put out there and were being pushed. There was the lockstep nature of how everything was rolling out around the world, but every country kind of had their own little take on it, and it felt very much like, you know, my experience here was it felt like they were pushing as hard as they possibly could to find what that breaking point was of the people, you know, how far they could take the extremities of it in a Western civilization and in a democracy, to gain learnings from it. Because it was like we're, as you said before, we are a very compliant nation. You know, there was a lot of people that happily just rolled over and just, you know, took the government's instruction as being gospel. And as Gaylene said earlier, prior to this, you know, occurring here for me, I was very much one of those people who just went, yeah, the government, they're over there doing their thing, whatever it is, you know, keeping hospitals running and roads open, you know, really not doing either of those things either. But it was, it felt very much like they took us right out to the edge of what we could handle as a society, where it was, there was a lot of division that was fostered and cultured as well through media, through government, as to, which we had protested numerous times throughout the course of the different laws, regulations, guidance that was coming out, and definitely when the traffic lights came out, that was a breaking point for a lot of us. And it was interesting just seeing how far they could take that before we actually galvanized into a protest to say no, enough is enough. And it doesn't matter what people say, the protest changed the state of the country. They reacted to it, they responded to it because they had to, because they couldn't continually just keep driving the people down. They'd seen what had happened, and there wasn't going to be another. They couldn't roll out another violent response against the people the way they did at the first protest. So they had to resolve the situation. The only way to resolve these situations is through negotiation or violence, they weren't negotiating, so they came out with the violence. So they couldn't go through that process again because then they'd have to negotiate. So they had to change their position. Oh, it's all okay now, and it's nothing to do with the protest. We're going to start lifting off these heavy-handed policies, which probably would have just carried on for another 6 months. They would have happily just let it roll on. They're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, but why didn't they tell people that they were going to do that in 3 weeks?
Oh, exactly.
Why wait for 1 week after the protest?
Yeah.
And, because people would have gone home, because most of the people there were about ending those mandates and the traffic light system.
Mm-hmm.
It seems punishing. That's the thing that really gets me. It does seem like it's
but
like
they don't
you
give
say,
you
it's
credit.
a test case.
They don't want to.
How long will we last? 23 days.
Yeah, if they give the protesters credit that because of them we got rid of the mandates, then they've lost, and the government don't want to do that because they don't want to come across we've actually failed, So it's we talked about this before, but Jared is so right. The idea of it being a test and how far can we push this group of people? What can we learn from them? What can we use? And you can see the globalist agenda. One of the things that they did immediately was this getting every country to sign to this global scheme from the World Health Organization for pretty much handing over your health sovereignty to them. It's called the treaty or something. Essentially it gives the World Health Organization to impose a global pandemic in the future, and then everybody must fall in line, and they must implement lockdowns and mandates and vaccines and so forth. They tested it with Mpox, which is also called monkeypox. Apparently that's racist to monkeys, so we call it Mpox. and it was interesting to see, and it's a test for them to see whether people are going to fall in line. Can we use fear tactics? How can it spread? How is the media interested in telling the stories? So it's super interesting how they would do this as a test. I had a guy come on my podcast, and he sued 3 states in the U.S., John Bourdain Sr., and you can watch that podcast on Spotify. And he sued 3 of the states, and it was all around falsifying death certificates by putting COVID-19 as the cause of death to incentivize the whole system, and essentially manufactured the pandemic because it wasn't a pandemic. Yes, people were dying, okay, but it wasn't big enough to be a pandemic because, hey, guess what? A lot of people are still alive, right? Many people died, but most of us are still alive in the world. Billions of us are alive. So it wasn't a pandemic. It was manufactured. And so it's interesting how you can see through these stories, and you have to ask the question, was it actually real, or was this all a programming and everyone trying to, exploit the systems and push their agendas? And you would see the same outcomes out of this COVID-19 inquiry. They'll use it, they'll politicize it, but it actually won't fix the things that it should be fixing.
Well, on that note, it's always good to take a historical point of view.
Yeah.
So in 1918, we had the Spanish flu came through.
Yeah.
And that was a real pandemic, that was apparently killing a lot of people, blood, pouring out of their mouth. It was just horrible. I had family die, great-grandparents and stuff. But they rolled out some horrendous methods to try and fix that, like zinc sulfate. And
wow.
So there's 2 things about that pandemic. Number one, there was this big first wave. It was 2 months, and then they had then there was a smaller wave, and another couple months later, and the government rolled out their very similar lockdowns and all the rest, and restrictions on transport. But within 3 months, the people were over it, and they were resisting the government's measures to control the population. So what is the difference with the people now, who we were gullible for 3 years, versus, you know, our ancestors 100 years ago, 3 months, we're over it, no more. Even though it was way worse, it was still actually quite a, there's still a lot of death happening, but they were willing to
It's social media.
cope with that.
Social media.
Do you think it's social media?
Well, I think it's having the door straight into your brain. You know, that's what it is. They can, it's, you know, literally whatever messaging they've got, they can, you know, we can, you know, talk about praise the benefits of, you know, platforms, you know, for being able to get our message out there from our perspective, but it works the other way as well. It gets their message straight in, you know, and people will sit there and, you know, be terrified of. I was just listening to an interview with somebody talking about it, how they can take a 50-50 voter, somebody on the fence, and by adjusting not the search results but the search suggestions, they can make you an 80-20 voter one way or the other. By just layering that information around what you're looking at in your screen, whether it's a computer or a device, a tablet, they can influence you. You know, without you even realizing it. You just lean that way, and so they can take that fear, because, you know, fear is so potent, as we know, and they just continue to layer it on us. And so it's hard for us to break through, because everybody is terrified from looking at their phones or their devices and just getting this constant dread. So
and there's I think there's just a lack of critical thinking, and and we've lost an ability to actually listen to ourselves and our own intuition. We because of social media and the Google and all that, we've kind of put our brain elsewhere and not actually using our own.
And Gaylene and I both live rurally. That helps a lot.
There's a lot of social engineering going on at schools, at homes. There's a lot of lies that people learn, misinformation, and social media. Yes, you know, Mark Zuckerberg came out a month ago saying that he was pressurized by the US government to lie and censor people. And you know, if you think about social media from 2016 to 2020 and 2022, it was all censorship-based social media, and it was controlled by these government until Elon came along, bought Twitter, turned it into X, and it's become the only platform that is, you know, about free speech and allowing a diverse view to be spread and for people to have that. But yes, the lack of critical thinking is huge. And there's all these movements, whether it's, you know, people are against transgender or people are feminists. So much of these movements, Black Lives Matter, like all of these movements, if you look deep enough, they are all, you know, there to push an agenda, as much as it sounds like it's the right thing, you know, or it's you know, we got to fight for women's right. Because when you look deep enough, you can find in all these feminist movement, transgender movement, ultimately their goal is to pretty much say all men are evil, right? And I find a lot of trouble into all these engineering that goes on, and they are trying to, like, demasculinating men. It's like, good luck having a healthy society if you want to demasculate men. You know, there's a lot that goes on, and the good thing I always try and encourage is, if you have kids, I have 3 kids that are under the age of 7, is, you know, have a lot of conversations with them and teach them about the ability of critical thinking, you know. And they pick up so much stuff, and you never know where it's coming from, what's true, what's not true. And I try and not enforce what's my truth to them, but trying to encourage them to be critical thinkers. There was a teacher at my son's school that told my son, where your father comes from, it's a very dangerous place. It's like, whoa. Like, are you that thick-headed that the Middle East is like, you know, it's just a terrorist organization? And come on. You know, where I come from is in the Emirates is way more safer than being in New Zealand. Facts. Go Google it, you know. There's so many, my son came home after the end of the Maori language week, and we're having dinner, and he goes, "Dad, did you know that we stole the land from the Maori people, and the Maori people are special?" I'm like, "Okay, interesting conversation." And then he started saying, "Are you special, Dad?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'm an indigenous Arab, so I'm special." And then he goes, "What about me, Dad? Am I special?" I'm like, "Well, you're half special and you're half thief." So if that's the narrative you want to believe in, you're only half special and half thief. So enjoy your dinner.
Half special and half thief.
Yeah, so it's and the other day he was telling me that the cars are bad for the planet and they're destroying the planet. Like, it's interesting, right? Wherever they pick that up from, right? And however that information channels through, it's unfair to say, oh, it's the schools are bad, or the education is bad, or the kids are giving phones and social media is bad, and kids are on TikTok. Yes, all of that, you can argue that's not good. But at the same time, I think is just trying to encourage them to critical thinking and not just blindly believe that everything you read in a book is true, or the school is the source of the truth. So that's the big thing that I try to encourage people, is just listen to different. I send news from X to friends and new people every day, because I encourage them to get the news from different sources. And I send them my podcast all the time. Just listen to this podcast, listen to that podcast, because it allows you to broaden your mind and have context to the things that you're consuming on social media, which is so dangerous. You can just watch a 10-second video by flipping through, sliding up and down, and create that as your reality, with no context, nothing. So I think that's why podcasts are so much growing, and the attention span for podcasts now, and people trust podcasts, is like 49%. Because what we're doing here is we're not trying to tell people what the truth is. We're trying to drive critical thinking and broaden people's horizon and listen to different pieces of information. And ultimately, everybody needs to be their own institution and decide what's true, what's not true, and have the power through technologies like blockchain to vote for the legislations you want to vote for, and the government you want to vote for, and control your own currencies and revenue, and become a sovereign state yourself and control your freedom. And that's, I think, where the world is headed in many ways. So I think, critical thinking is a big piece. Sorry, I went on a rant.
It's all right. You said it earlier on, Adnan, and it's something that I always come back to, as well as, like, when you have these conversations about critical thinking, or trying to sort of, you can just hear somebody's conversation is about to, you're about to hit that point of conflict. Your opinions are coming together, and oh, this isn't going to go well. This isn't going to go well. We're going to get to that point where he's going to say, or she's going to say that thing, and I always try and get to that point of humour on it all, and just to sort of say to them, when you're going into the conflict, you say, but the government's lie, right? And you said it earlier, and nobody can deny it. Nobody can deny it. You say, that governments lie, politicians lie all the time, right? Everybody says yes, and you say, that's it. Yeah. You just need to understand that, and then stop believing everything they're feeding you and going, they lie, they twist the truth, they distort it for their own reasons. They're not benign.
I'm part of. It's so true. I'm part of a few anti-woke private chat groups on Telegram, and a lot of it is healthy, because everyone's sharing information about the lies that are going around and what's true, and the deep state and this and that, and stuff like that. But once in a while, there's always like a clash that comes, and you can see the people that don't want to get involved, they disappear, and the people that want the clash push for the clash, and there's always few voices of reason trying to drive critical thinking. And the latest one's obviously Israel killing all these terrorists, and Israel's the bad guy, and Palestine's a good guy. and why extremism is a good thing in the Middle East. It's just fascinating how people who are awakened and understand that they're being lied to can fall into the traps of misinformation or taking a side because someone's convinced them that they, the 50-50 thing you talked about with voters, the 80-20 split, is people do fall into that trap because what we are living in now is we're living into World War III, which is a war on information, right? And that's the war we're living at. And every single government wants to fight the war on information because they want to be able to govern. They want people to be able to trust them. There's 8 billion people in the world. There's only 200 governments. It's big business. Okay?
That's a good step.
And a lot of these tech wizards that sit in Silicon Valley, what they're trying to do is they're trying to break down jurisdictions and create smaller and smaller governments where they can go live by and not follow a flag and have full control of their lives and their cryptos and their currencies and the information and live that life. There's a company called Prospera. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. Prospera. It's invested... they've got billions of dollars of investment from the likes of Silicon Valley investors. And what they do is they go buy land that sovereign states don't want to use, and they then turn that land into a jurisdiction themselves and govern and attract people who don't want to be part of a jurisdiction. If you think you're living in New Zealand and you're being fucked by the government, you go live on Prospera land and you have your own currencies, you have your own bank accounts, you have your own life, and you have your own freedom, and it's all driven on crypto, and it's a very different reality, right? So they did one in Honduras on the island of Roatan, and they're trying to build a jurisdiction that they drive of 30 to 50,000 people by the end of 2030, right? And so when you're part of that, then you are free from the jurisdictions and all the lies and all the governments that want to say. So I think we're seeing that trend happen, is people are physically organizing themselves in ecosystems, and their identities built within their values instead of New Zealand as a country.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what happened on Parliament Lawn. There was a lot of talk about decentralised communities and,
Nice.
parallel communities. That was quite a big conversation, and other alternatives to, Parliament sovereignty. And that's where we were supported by some tangata whenua, who came in from different angles, different points of view.
Yeah.
But they were able to bring their understanding of a way of living beyond what we saw at the time was a very corrupt parliament government.
Yeah.
But I suppose where I started this whole journey, when I saw that this nonsense and war of information was happening, there was a poet called John Trudell, and I listened to a podcast from him. He's an American Indian. American Indian.
Yeah, Native American.
Native American, yeah, and he says what we need is clear and coherent thought, to get us through this, this what's coming. And I thought, oh, okay, I could try that. And then the way we finished the film was with a kaumātua saying, when we meet each other, we just bring our essence. I'm here and I'm with my essence, and I'm talking to you, your essence. So we need to meet each other at that level in order to make any new world or make any new future. And that's beyond our identities or our ideologies or whatever brainwashing or things we're captured with. So when we have these conflicts, it's not about this idea or that idea. It's that, you just meet people, their essence, their true self, and that takes a lot of work to know your own true self and then to encourage other people to be their true self. And then, but beyond, I don't know how that moves into governance, but from that point you can sort of create more authentic societies potentially. And that's sort of where we sort of did hint to in the film, we did.
Yeah, I think that's like a beautiful piece that the film kind of hints to, because if you bring this whole conversation to the reality in New Zealand, because your film's about New Zealand, we're talking about New Zealand, is we have the Treaty Principles Bill. It's all being defined now to that we're all one people and there is one government and they're going to govern just all of us, right? And then the counter argument to that, which the Maori Party would, let's say, for example, push, is yes, there is a treaty, but it does not say that the one government governs the Maori people. The Maori people are going to be governed differently, and that's what we're going to push for, right? So all of a sudden you're going to end up, which is what the Labour government was doing, I guess, with like the Maori Health Authority, is you're having different governance for a different group of people. And that's where it kind of, these films to me are telling a much more deeper story, and there are connection points that I can make from what the government's doing now to what people want or how people see themselves governed, or different groups of people see themselves governed, and their essence and their existence and how they're connected to the land, or how they see the world, how they project the world. It's a fascinating path to follow to discover what the truth really is, and who is driving what. The government might be using this whole division narrative to try and push their Treaty Principles Bill. Because the thing that really sprung for me is the Treaty Principle Bill wasn't really that much supported by National. It was going to be like an act thing. It's going to go a little bit, but now it's like this big thing, right? Now all of a sudden it's getting a lot of push. Now what's going on? And all the conversations that I keep having with people, it's like, is it connected to the dollar? Is it the de-dollarization that's going on? Is it the war in the South China Sea? Why is Winston Peters trying to get into the UN National Security Council? What is he doing with AUKUS? So all these points just add up. They connect. And there's a lot of, I guess, a case for economic reasons why they're doing the Treaty Principles Bill. There's just so much to it. And it's a good thing, because we're applying critical thought, we're questioning things. Everyone's trying to use these false flags to push each side being the wrong one or the right one, it's interesting. It's super interesting how you have one. Hillary Clinton was on MSNBC, and she was basically saying that what we need to do with all the Trump supporters is we need to deprogram them and reprogram them to what we think is the right or the wrong thing. And they really, if they get into power, they're going to destroy the First Amendment, and they want to introduce censorship. Their view is the First Amendment does not give you freedom of speech, does not give you freedom of expression. There are a lot of things you're not allowed to say, and that's what they think. And to me, there's so much of all of this is so connected.
Yeah, it is a shame in our country we can't have that conversation about the treaty a bit more civilly,
Yeah.
I think, David Seymour is trying to just raise the conversation.
Yes.
But
it's not really happening, is it?
No. Yeah.
So why do you think people don't want to have that conversation?
Is it don't want to have the conversation around re-looking at the treaty? Is that what you're asking? Around the conversation that's happening now?
Well, I think I'm kind of following Gaylene's comments about
because it is there is a point to be made that I don't know when it was, but someone introduced the treaty principles into legislation.
Yeah.
And what they are: partnership, participation, protection.
Okay.
And somebody decided that they came from the Treaty of Waitangi. So my understanding was David Seymour was asking, well, is that right? He's not actually talking about the Treaty of Waitangi and revisiting that, but
No,
as you
he's-
just
I
where
think
those
he- what
where
I
those
had
principles came from and whether
Yeah.
they should be
Yeah.
within legislation. And I'm like, well, that's a conversation we should have, because I didn't know that they were just invented and
Yeah.
that was someone made
And
it,
also the
that would be the
tribunal.
thing. And
Yeah.
and they don't even do them. They don't even apply to them, because that was my main complaint with Fire and Fury, for instance, is
Yeah.
they didn't was about around their view of their Treaty of Waitangi principles, because they're supposed to, as a New Zealand on-air funded program, in legislation, they have to follow the treaty principles, which is not the Treaty of Waitangi. It's just the principles of
Yeah.
partnership, protection, and participation. And they had some Māori characters in that film that they did not ask if they wanted to participate. They certainly did not partner with her. And she was absolutely not protected. She was abused in that film. So I'm like, was she not the right sort of Māori for them? Is it only some Māori that get protection
Well,
and
I
not
think
others?
the
Like this is what my question was to the Broadcasting Standards Authority, and they didn't agree with me. But
No, and it's when you say people don't want to have the conversation, because the conversation effectively, opposition to the conversation is painted as racism. So therefore, the conversation doesn't want to be had, because if you oppose it, you've just you're a racist. So therefore, you have to go along with it. So therefore, why would you even want to engage in a conversation that your base is just like bad for you if you have any want to apply any critical thinking to it? And I think that's kind of where society is. You don't want to say this is crazy because of this. Well, you're racist.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it could have been an opportunity to actually find some common ground, and
I
but
think
because
both sides play dirty. Both sides play dirty. You would have the Maori side that would push this whole white guilt on people, and they feel like white people must feel guilty for what they've done, and I don't agree with that. I don't think it's like there's a video that I watched of a white woman in America kissing the feet of black people because of the slavery that they subjected them to. It's like, come on, man, what the fuck are you guys doing? So the both sides play dirty. There's wasn't it one of the Maori Party co-leaders was promoting this thing called How to Train Your Pākehā. I don't know if you've heard of that.
oh yeah, that's quite right. Yeah.
I don't know it was him, but I did see that there was I think both sides play dirty. One side would say, oh, that's racist, you can't do that. The other side says, oh, you're pushing division, so you can't do that, we're all one people. But I think the reality is, I don't think New Zealanders find themselves as being one people. I think there's a lot of cultures and subcultures and sub-realities that exist. And there it's a melting pot of so many different cultures. We had the same thing in the Emirates. There's 300 different nationalities that live in the Emirates. So they did not live the reality of it being the Emirates. They just wanted the government to provide them a service, and they were customers. They were paying for that service, right? So for a lot of people, there's so many different realities.
I think one of the chats was about the hapu, which is the tribal, broken down from iwi. You've got your hapu little village, community, and that's land based. It's where you live. And I suppose the complication we have in our world today is that we've got different people who have come in with their old cultures, their old beliefs, their old systems, and mixing up, and we don't have that land connection based hapu, which is your neighbours, who you're living with, your village, and so it's just a matter of being able to reform in that way. This is a complication we have all over the world, really, is bringing that identity and not actually connecting with the land. So
do you think a lot of people don't want to have the conversation in New Zealand is because they feel like it's going to get into these like, oh, we've stolen the land and we have to leave and we have to go back to the UK because it's not our land, or we have to give it back? Do you think like people feel threatened that it's kind of, it's about that? I would say the real reason is that we've grown up in a culture of not having the conversation and not teaching it in history subjects, or history would probably not be accurate in terms of how New Zealand was founded on. So there's a lot of that weaved into culture and society. But do you think it is that people feel that they get attacked for being white for the history. Is why the New Zealand culture, I find, is a culture that doesn't like conflict much, or they avoid conflict, or they beat around the bush. They're not very blunt and straightforward. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I don't personally feel threatened by that. I can't speak for everybody, but...
Yeah. But you're basically saying we need to have more conversations about the treaty.
I mean, there's certainly a lack of education on it, for sure.
Yes.
But you don't want to be... I think they've kind of gone a bit overboard lately. Yeah, like, these things just, you need to percolate them a little bit slower. Like...
Right.
Yeah, so now there's a bit of a backlash happening, a bit of this pendulum's kind of swinging in the other direction.
Yes.
So it's a shame, because they were just on a nice track of people, becoming... loving the Māori culture and the language and... embracing some of the tikanga and some of their stories around the land, and they're beautiful and we love them, and we can embrace some of that spirituality as well.
Yes.
But then when it gets rammed down your throat and you must do it, that's becomes, then you lose that sovereignty issue, that choice.
Yeah.
And that's where there's always going to be a pushback. So let's just settle down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I understand, and I think there's some of the stories that I heard that there were some realtors that would refuse to do a Te Reo Māori course, got their licenses revoked.
Yeah, and that's appalling for sure.
Yeah, so that's, I think, is an example, is what I would call, from your comment, is if you shove it down too much, people are eventually going to be like, okay, that's, we're going to go down the other path, because that's not the idea. For me, it's like the Maori language is not useful for me in my everyday conduct of living the life. I love the spiritual aspects of it, right? I'm happy to have some ayahuasca somewhere in the bush and enjoy do a haka or whatever it is, or a hangi or whatever it is, the spiritual. I love that stuff. That's cool. That's fun. But I don't find the language useful in my everyday life, right? I'm the first Arab in my generation of Arabs to speak the English language, because the English language was very important in being able to engage with the world, with work, and being useful as a human being. And so that's what I love, that's what I did. And I get a lot of heat about it because I don't speak Arabic well. I've lost that, but it's not useful to me. I don't engage in Arabic worlds. If I do, then I can speak English with Arabic people. It's a language that can still, communicate. Yes, Arabic is rich, it's great, it's awesome. It's I try and get my kids interested in it and speak with them with the the broken words that I can put together. But for me, I love the English language. It's a tool, and I use it. So yeah, it's everyone has different reasons. Yeah, but I agree. I think the pendulum's kind of swung back against that whole movement. So tell me about this book, Gaylene.
Yeah, well, Sian, get in here. Tell us about the book. Can you come in and sit in here? Yeah.
Hi,
Sian.
This is Sian. So Sian's our writer.
Welcome
to
the show.
Good. It's a very beautiful book. It's interwoven voices. So basically, the voices from River of Freedom have been expanded, because honestly, we did so many interviews and we've got so much content. It's 2.5 hours. It could have been 10.
Yeah.
So we've taken the opportunity to sort of put that into the book, and Sian has come on board and made an amazing job of weaving it together into a really coherent story.
It's also kind of behind the scenes on how the movie came about, and also the people behind the scenes at the festival who were coordinating all the hundreds of donations that came through, creating the food, organising the speeches and the microphone and the stage, and the musicians who were there and who also had a big part to play in keeping the people informed and entertained and keeping them there, really.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And there's our book there. Do you see that little sheet there?
Yes,
do you see that?
I do. Yeah,
that's the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's even harder than a film. That each little post-it note is a...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And then it's also set with the IPCA report, so we can look back with the Hansard transcripts of what they were saying in Parliament at the time, and the threat from all these protesters, and whether or not they were a threat, and whether or not they were terrorists. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think writing a book about a film, it just gives you the opportunity to go much more in depth. The people behind, how did it come about, and all these little details. I'm excited. So when's the book out?
Well, we'd love it to be out in time for the 3rd anniversary next year.
Yeah.
But finding a publisher is as interesting as finding a distributor. So we're weighing up at the moment whether or not we would self-distribute, but ideally we'd love to find a publisher because it's got academic references in it as well. So it's not just theory, everything's been thoroughly researched. So hopefully in the future you'd find it in university libraries alongside the film, really.
Yeah, it has to be more than just a repeat of the film. It has to provide something that is important to society. And the angle of, whether it's taking the path of free speech or freedom or, the lack of trust in governments, the fourth estate, the breakdown of the fourth estate, the media. And so there has to be some sort of an angle that the publisher is interested in.
Absolutely, because we do have the built-in audience already, all the people who were there and all the people who've been interested in the film. I think a book makes it very easy, if it's like a coffee table book, for people to have a little skim and to see some of these facts, and they may want to go more in depth. But if it's there in somebody's house who has been at the protest, or someone who is very pro the film, pro the movement, versus those who are a little bit more sceptical, it's very easy, rather than getting them to sit down and watch a movie, that it's something that they can dip into and have a look and flick through.
Yeah, it's a good book to have around on the coffee table or in your library, and it's just a really good conversation starter as well. That,
absolutely.
People want to talk about it, and so whoever has the book will have their own story of the book or their involvement in whatever shape or form, distant or being at the protest. So awesome, incredible. Well, thank you for coming on the show. I look forward to reading the book.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, John.
Gaylene, is there anything else you want to cover? Is there anything else you want to talk about as we wrap up?
No, I'm pretty good. Yeah. So there's lots we could have talked about. I suppose myocarditis reports that have come out, or
I'm happy if you want to get into it. I have no time restrictions.
We probably should wrap up. Yeah.
I can do another 30 minutes if you want. If you want to get into any reports, things, Jared. Anything you want to
just cover? The one thing is, so they were just talking about feelings really in the last report. How people felt about having, their lives compromised forever by the vaccine. But a year ago, the more interesting report is the one that they did on 4.2 million vaccinated New Zealanders, and discovered that there was already a statistically significant increase in myocarditis. Like, they knew this. And they were saying that we need to have more research, more data, but they just haven't done it. And neither of those reports made it into the media. And we cannot get into the media with our story about myocarditis and the other vaccine injuries either. And so it's such a bizarre, curious thing that in particular is unable to be breached by media. I mean, I don't know whether they're doubling down or they feel ashamed. There's lack of humility, because it's quite major and it's quite happening and it's a truthful thing. So I don't understand why that's not being reported on, either that report or the previous one.
Yeah, there's a lot of alternative media platforms that constantly provide information on COVID vaccines. Have you looked into much of the data that was leaked by Barry Young from Ministry of Health?
I have looked into that until they made it illegal to have that data.
Oh, did you have to delete it?
Well, what I would say about that is, there's no context with that data. It hasn't come with any, verification from other sources. So it's just a dump. It needs research around it. You need to analyse it with other things going on. And so this Health New Zealand report with 4.2 million people, that came from the government. They did that.
Yeah.
So my problem with the Barry Young data is because that's out now, it may have stalled or stopped legitimate research happening,
right?
Because it's now in the courts, and I don't know that it's been useful, to be honest, personally.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's that happens when governments and media don't want to actually talk about the vaccines and the injuries and the stories they want to tell, and people, go and put the data out, and the governments use their powers to stall that and delay that, and court cases, and
that's right, and that's made it very easy for them. Yay, now we can sit on these other reports for ages. One of the things that came through with his data was that there was a lot of deaths in old people's homes,
right?
But that was reported in the early interim review of the vaccine as it was rolling out.
Yeah.
They were having these reports coming in that 10s and 20s of people in the old people's homes were dying after the vaccine. They knew. It's like and still did nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, it's not new information.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for coming on the show. Tell us what your social media accounts are for the movie. Where can people get the movie? Tell us your social media accounts.
Go on, Gaylene. It's all yours.
Riveroffreedom.nz is our website.
Yeah.
And on there is you can purchase the DVD, the Blu-ray, which has got more material on it, actually.
Okay.
So it's got another hour of music videos and some extra wonderful content I loved, which I couldn't put in the film.
That's cool. I love the poster, by the way. It's so cool. It's beautiful.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. And then the DVD is for sale on riveroffreedom.nz.
Yeah.
And all of the links to the other platforms like Apple TV, YouTube, they're all where you can download the film or watch the film, as they're linked from that site. We're on Twitter, River Freedom 22 or something.
Yeah.
Just search for River of Freedom documentary.
Yeah.
And Facebook. So we're quite active on, Facebook mainly. Twitter getting more.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thanks.
Thank you so much. It's been a really great chat.
It's awesome. I'd love to have you back when you have the book, and I guess it's a conversation that's going to be ongoing for many years to come about the aftermath of protests, and they're such an important part of society and people's ability to be out there and, I guess, expressing their views against what's not functioning well, that should be functioning well, and having incredible people like yourself to film these and then put them out there is just incredible. So well done. Congrats again. I'd love to see the international version of the movie out. Love to see the book. And we'll make sure that we'll share it with all my circles as well.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Adnan.